All right, hello everyone. Welcome to But First Football here at the end of minicamp. So a little quiet. Hey Vaughn, how are
Yes,
you?
I'm doing well. How are you, Kim?
Good. Just ready for real football.
Yeah.
But it seems as if most teams have their mini camps, and there's not a tremendous amount of news. But I wanted to know what some of the storylines that you have been interested in. What are you following right now?
I hate to admit it, but I've been following the Aaron Rodgers drama as usual. Just because, that's kind of, you look up NFL news and that's kind of the first thing you're hit with. And it's like, oh, well, let me see what's going on. And so it's unfortunately in my mental Rolodex. So I know that his family was informed of his wedding through the media like the rest of us were, and but more specifically though, I just just trying to grapple with how he's going to affect Pittsburgh's chances at success this year. Look, I don't think he gets them to the Super Bowl, but I think he gives them a good chance of making a deeper run because like I said, I think I spoke about it last week. Tomlin does an excellent job with that team, and with inferior quarterback talent, he's gotten them to the playoffs before. So I think that's probably the low bar, and then it's just about, hey, well, how deep of a run can they go on? And with DK Metcalf and the other receiver acquisition they made this offseason, I think that gives them an opportunity to maybe make a deep run.
But they
So
are in a really tough division.
that's true. That is true. Baltimore is a beast.
Cincinnati.
Um, yeah, Cincinnati. Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins. They're always going to be a problem. So yeah, they're going to have to navigate that. But I look. I don't think the quarterback position is going to lose games for them, and that's the thing. That's what you want. You don't necessarily need a quarterback who's going to win the game for you, but you can't have a quarterback who's going to lose the game for you. And even at this late stage in his career, I think Aaron Rodgers gives you that. Because and I didn't break down the stats myself, I just kind of, just based on what was aggregated, I just kind of skimmed through and saw he really didn't statistically have that bad of a season with the Jets.
Especially later in the season. He
Yeah,
seemed to kind of get better.
I
Well,
think it's
but the other thing that's happening though in Pittsburgh is TJ Watt did not attend minicamp. He's trying to get
yeah,
that
contract
contract
stuff.
done, and
Yeah.
they need their defense to hold up. With the whole Aaron Rodgers, I'm calling it the Aaron Rodgers experiment.
Right.
So
Well, I think that'll get done. Pittsburgh is one of the more conservative franchises, but TJ Watt has demonstrated that he's one of the premier defensive players. So I just don't think they're going to have a choice. They're going to have to uh, reach an agreement that makes him happy. Obviously, like I said, they're not just going to open the bank, but they're going to have to pay the market value for who he's been these last call it 6, 7, 8 years.
yeah,
And I think part of the problem with I think there's always that Aaron Rodgers off the field drama that makes it feel worse than it really is, which is why people's impressions of how he performed with the Jets is probably not quite the story. He was probably a little bit better than people give him credit, but he's his personality is just so abrasive and hard to he's a hard guy to root for at this point in his career for whatever reason. And he's kind of chosen it though. I
yeah,
think he goes out of his way and he likes being that guy. So
he does. He's
um,
become like the villain for whatever
yeah,
reason.
yeah.
So
So
another story. What are your thoughts on the Cleveland quarterback situation. That's an interesting storyline. There's 4 guys in that quarterback room.
Right.
They're not all going to be there at the beginning of the season. What are your thoughts?
Still shocked that Shador went so late, just because I thought he did a great job with. He wasn't very well protected at Colorado, so I thought he would have gotten credit for that. And how tough, he's a tough kid. He really is, because he took a lot of hits, took a lot of sacks while he was at Colorado. And granted, he had clearly one of the like a generational talent playing for him at receiver, but I still think he made a lot of plays. So I'd be surprised if he's not on the roster. I don't know that he'll be the starter, but Joe Flacco probably goes into the season as the starter. Again, football is very different between now and training camp, right? The speed picks up, and so we'll see what kind of, is he able to transition from the college game to now, and then you still got 2 other quarterbacks, right, who are vying for that position, and I subscribe to the idea that if you have 2 quarterbacks, you don't have any, right? Because just in my limited experience, it's always been a clear starter, a clear backup, and hey, if the starter goes down, then of course the next guy up mentality that the whole NFL uses and subscribes to. But at the same time too, competition, you like to think, a lot of people believe that iron sharpens iron, and what that means is that the competition raises everyone's level. But it's just that the guys behind Flacco are so inexperienced, and then Flacco, right? He's so deep into his career.
He did not have a good season last year in Indianapolis at all.
Right. And
I heard a little rumor that Miami might be interested in Dylan Gabriel. He was the one they drafted before Shador. So maybe that might solve part of the problem. But I also think that they're not going to keep both Flacco and Pickett. I mean, that's the weird part to me. Like, why would they keep both those guys? Shador they can develop, or if it's Dylan they can develop, but Flacco or Kenny Pickett, I mean, it just seems like a lot of baggage.
I just think their quarterback situation was so weird and so strange with Watson that it was just a situation where it was like, oh, here's a talented guy, let's bring him in. Oh, here's another talented guy, let's bring him in. And one of these guys will stick. And if it's one of the young guys, great, then we can build around him and the organization can grow with him. And yeah, I mean, the only thing I can say for sure is that you are right off the jump. They're not keeping all 4 of those guys. Unless there's something we don't know, and maybe they've got plans to change one of them, switch positions. But I haven't. That's just wild speculation. I haven't heard anything to that effect. But yeah, they're not going to keep all 4. With the 2 young guys, maybe maybe it's really more than a 4-way competition for the starter. Maybe it's just a 2-way competition between Pickett and Flacco for the starter, and then they're going to keep the other 2 and see how they develop over the course of the year going into next year. I could see that scenario.
Well, it keeps us talking about the Browns.
Yeah.
Which is painful, but
good point. Yeah.
So here's another storyline that I would love to get your take on. What are your thoughts on the 49ers? So they just, they gave Brock Purdy that great contract, well deserved in my opinion. But they've lost some guys, and then, McCaffrey is just so injury prone. Do you think this is are they going to start rebuilding, or do you think they have something there that they can still, can they get to the playoffs as they are?
Well, I think they benefited for several years from that model that a lot of teams have figured out. You know, you get a rookie, you identify a rookie quarterback who plays very well. And look, he was the last pick in his draft, and he played, I think, great. Now, some of the shine has seemed to come off, at least with some of the pundits. Some of the pundits are starting to pick his game apart, which is normal. Like that's going to happen. If you play long enough, you're going to put plays out there, and it's going to give people ammunition. I think he's well overplayed his value. Like it's rare that the last pick plays as well as he did. Now, granted, yes, because of where he was drafted, they had a lot of capital that they could put into other positions. And I say that to say he had a lot of help around him. But great, that's fine. That's one way to win that several teams have adopted. And so now the issue is, now that they've paid him, and like you said, well deserved. He deserved to be compensated for what he did for the organization. But now there's not as much money that you can put into other positions, right? Where they lost Debo Samuels, you know, he's in Washington now, and so you start to lose players. But San Francisco has proven to be, you know, these last few years, a good organization, and you know they take a dip for a year or two, but then they're right back up. So they know how to identify talent and develop talent, and so
I bet he wishes he had a wide receiver room like the Bucks. You know, we are stacked at the wide receiver position.
Yeah, and that's just a freakishly, like you said, freakishly stacked room, right? Going back to when VJ was there, right? They just, I mean, it's just rare that you get that amalgamation of talent in one receiver room. So yeah, everyone would love to have that receiver
That is
room.
jealous of us. Well, those were some of the like storylines, and then one other that I would be curious on your thoughts. I'm thinking that this is like a make or break year for Miami between Tua and, is it McCarthy? Is that his name? That kind of goofy coach.
No, it's not McCarthy. It's oh geez, I'm drawing a blank. I see his face right now, but I'm drawing a blank.
Yeah. But I mean, do you agree with that? Because they just have not been able to. First of all, they can't seem to play in cold weather. I mean, I get it, but Tua can't seem to stay healthy, and that coach doesn't seem to have the sway that he maybe once did.
Yeah, I think it would be tough for me to characterize it as make or break, but maybe they look at tweaking the build of the team a little bit. Playing in, you know, South Florida, I think they wanted to be kind of like that race car where, hey, we've got these great receivers. We're just gonna, you know, boat race it. Our quarterback, when he's healthy, is one of the better quarterbacks in the league, and we're just going to go out here, put up a ton of points. And but the problem is that their margin for error has been so small over these past few years. Now, whether the chink in the armor has been playing in cold weather in the playoffs, or our system doesn't really hold up if our quarterback isn't healthy, and unfortunately our quarterback isn't always healthy, right? And so how do you tweak the build of the team to account for those things, right? So I think it'll be more little tweaks to their system than just a complete overhaul, because you know these organizations, once you a head coach and a GM get together and they just say, hey, well, here's our philosophy. Here's how we see the team as it's currently built. This is what we think we're capable of, and how do our philosophies mesh with that, and where do we want to go? Where do we want to be 2, 3, 4, 5 years from now? So, okay, well, now we're agreeing. Now the ship is at sail. Well, it's hard to just turn that ship around on a dime, right?
Right.
And so I think it's more about the small change. Okay, well, this is what we thought. These are the results we got. Okay, this worked, this didn't, so let's keep this, let's keep that. So But I think you definitely have identified their two big problems in that. Yeah, they're, and I get why they're not necessarily built for cold weather. But at the same time, you still have to have that. When you're playing in the AFC East, you're
You're gonna
inevitably,
go to cold weather.
unless you get home field, you're gonna be in cold weather. So you got to be able to handle that. And then two, once you, I'll say this, because the problem isn't necessarily that he gets hurt. They understand that, but then the contract is the problem. They gave him the big problem.
Right.
Again, I think he's played well enough to earn it, but it's, and that's the thing. That's just the thing in negotiations. It's like, okay, well, if we don't give him the contract, what's our next best alternative, right? Well,
Right.
when he's healthy, we think he's one of the elite, whether other people do or not, they think he's one of the elite quarterbacks in the league. So they want to pay him for that, and so they at least they given lip service to, hey, we're gonna beef up our offensive line, we're gonna protect him more, we're gonna run protections where he's not gonna take so many hits. They brought, I believe they brought, I can't remember the MLB guy, but they brought an MLB guy in to teach him how, when he scrambles, to slide and not take the hits, right? So they're trying to do what they can to mitigate injuries as far as it relates to their quarterback, but to this point, like you said, it hasn't worked. And that's the thing, right?
Vaughn, you always say the best ability is availability.
Yes, absolutely.
Right? So I don't know if he can put a full season together.
Because he's a guy you can root for, right? Like, he's just such seems like such a good guy, and so you do root for him, but at the same time, the physics are what they are, and he's this is year 4, no, not 4, this is probably year 5 or 6 for him, and
Maybe 5.
I hate to say it, but you kind of are who you are at this point, right?
Yeah.
It's rare for a guy to get hurt less. Put it that way, right?
Right. As
Once you start getting hurt, yes, and as you age, it's rare that they get hurt less, right? If anything, they get hurt more. So, what are they going to do? Put around him to, maybe it's changing. Maybe it is, because this guy's supposed to be an offensive guru. Maybe it is changing up the system where we're getting the ball out like that. Like, it's going to be, we're going to stretch the field horizontally, run shorter routes, even though we're very fast. But in order to keep our quarterback upright, this is one of the sacrifices maybe we have to make. And I'm not sure what that is for them, but you're right. They can't keep going down the path hoping and praying he stays healthy, hoping and praying that we go to Baltimore in January and our circumstances change, right?
Yeah.
Something's got to change.
Yeah. So those were kind of the storylines, but there were a couple funny things that I'm wondering if you caught on to some of these. So, number 1, there is a divorce attorney out there who is now offering free prenup agreements for any NFL player after Travis Hunter married his girlfriend without one after just signing that huge contract.
Did he marry his? I didn't. That was not on my radar.
Yeah, like 2 weeks ago. So here's this attorney out there offering free prenup. So I thought that was kind of funny, but also sad.
Vaguely aware of that Travis Hunter situation, just in that, and I don't know why some of this stuff pops up into my feed, but I know some of the scuttlebutt about, the internet. Put it this way, the internet is not a huge fan of her. And going back to, the story of their courtship, in that he was interested in her, she was not so much interested in him. Her brother said, "Hey, do you know who that is? That's Travis Hunter." Then suddenly she was interested. So there's a whole and that's the problem. Like, there's too many people involved in their relationship, right? Like,
Yeah.
they
Well,
should have never let that get out that he didn't have. So, I wish him all the luck. I hope everything
I hope,
works out
yeah,
and
I hope
they're,
it
they're
does too.
married for the next 50 years. So,
So what if Bill Belichick and that girl Jordan get married? I bet you there'll be a prenup.
Bill strikes me as the type of person who does not play with his money. So, yeah, I'm sure there would be. I'm sure there would be.
And then another funny thing that I heard was, and I mean, at first I thought this was kind of funny, but then I started thinking about it. I'm like, this really is not that funny. Dan Campbell, head coach of the Detroit Lions, wants a real lion on the sidelines.
Oh, geez.
So many things wrong with this. Number one, as an animal lover, that's just not fair to the animal. You're gonna bring a lion to a football game, but also, would that not just be somewhat dangerous?
Well, there's a precedent for it because LSU, I don't know if they still do, but I know for a
They
long,
used
long
to have a
time,
real tiger.
they used to have a real tiger on their sideline, obviously caged up. I don't know about Clemson or I mean, some of the more famous, well, wilder animal mascots, Colorado, Ralphie the bison, obviously, Bevo down at Texas,
Well, yeah,
the
yeah,
Longhorn
that's a
Steer.
here.
Somewhat domesticated animals, right? Who else? Auburn with the war eagle. I'm trying to think any other like big cats that are live. I mean, LSU is the one that just is sticking out in my head. So that's all I'll say. There is a precedent. I'm with you in terms of we don't need to be caging. Even if it's just for the duration, the 3 or 4 hour duration of a game, is it really necessary to be a
No,
Lion fan? No, like
for the poor lion.
But the fact that you tell me Dan Campbell is a fan of this does not surprise me. If you remember, he famously was talking about eating people's kneecaps
Yeah,
and
yeah. Well, apparently, so he put it out there, and apparently the owner of the Lions was all for it too. It's the NFL who said, no. So good for Roger Goodell for putting the kibosh on that. So, but those were the kind of funny stories that I saw this week. But I'm looking forward to the new season of quarterback. I'm looking forward to seeing what does in fact happen with Kirk Cousins. He came out today and he said he's all in on being a great backup quarterback, which seems a little bit uncharacteristic. But he does have a no trade clause in his contract. So unless someone that he, where he would want to go, I don't know where that would be. But chances are he is going to be the highest paid backup quarterback in the league.
Which, look, I've never felt, and I my rookie year, I can remember, I'm going in with the twos during training camp, and I'm playing tackle, and the guard to my inside, I blank on the play, and I'm tapping him like, hey, what am I supposed to do? And he just shakes his head and waves me off, like, right? Like, hey, ultimately we were competing for the same roster spot, right? And he was not going to share the information. And so,
did you ever do that to anyone else, Vaughn? Did you? Did you like brush a rookie off ever?
No, not as far as not helping him with a play. Like if he's in with me and hey, what do I do on this play? Oh yeah, I mean I'm going to help out.
Okay, that would be my guess.
It's great when you get vets that do that, but I still, even though I did it, I don't believe it's their job to do it. I don't believe it's the veteran QB's job to take the young guy under his wing and help him take his job, right? If he does, that's all the better and bully for him, but I don't think it's his job. And it just depends on the guy and what type of personality he has, whether he's going to do it or not. But if stories were to come out again, well, this one in particular, what we're talking about, I wouldn't necessarily hold that against Kirk Cousins, right? Because I understand it. Like it's competition ultimately, and hey, young buck, if you're not prepared, that's kind of on you. But I always, just because I look, I became the starter my second year, mid-season, and we were playing Indianapolis. I think that might have been my first or second start, and Indianapolis at the time was running this 3-3 hybrid defense. It was basically a nickel defense, but they were running it on first and second down. And where they lined up was never where they would end up. And it's one thing to know it in the classroom, but to get out on the field and everyone's moving around and it's your first start and you're nervous and you want to do well. And so I get to the line, I'm just like, and Courtney Hall, our center, could just see it in my eyes. And that whole game, he would, and he said it would just let me preface it by saying this: Courtney was awesome and was so good to me. All our vets were good to me, but I could see the disdain in his eyes as he was on block that guy right there.
Just to block them.
Block that guy right there, please.
Well, I don't know where Kirk Cousins would go. I mean, there really isn't anyone who could afford that kind of contract, and he's not going to go back to Minnesota. That would be ridiculous. And I mean, it seems like there's really no one else that's needed. Well, there probably are people who need a quarterback, but they're not going to spend $40 million on a guy who led the league in interceptions last year.
Well, that's the thing, right? I think there's plenty of places who would want him to either compete for the starting job, but maybe he's going to be a backup, but not at that contract number. And with the no trade clause, he has to approve any trade, and he's not giving up the money now that he's got it, and I don't blame him for it.
Right. Yeah, so I think that's going to be a little interesting storyline, and with him being on quarterback again, well, although that follows last year, so it won't give us any insight to what's going on now. But yeah, there's some intrigue there for me.
Yeah, but what, the quarterback will give us a little insight because they did make the switch to the young guy, Penix.
Right.
And so we'll get to see how he handled that. So that'll be a bit of a tell.
Yeah.
That'll be interesting.
Oh, I know. Well, who needs a quarterback is New Orleans, but they're not going to take Kirk Cousins, and Atlanta wouldn't let him go in the division anyway, I'm sure. But New Orleans is going to be a mess, and I'm fine with that.
You know what, Kim? I bet you Atlanta will let him go because they do not want to be on the line for all that money. I bet you they'd let him go to New Orleans in a heartbeat.
Yeah?
Yeah, I think so.
Well, I was just reading stuff today, and I'm just so over the bashing of the NFC South because, they're like, well, the Bucs are good, but it's the NFC South. And I say all the time, you said it's hard to win in the NFL, whatever division, So I am tired of them bashing the NFC South. I just am. And I would start bashing the AFC South because they're a boring division. Jacksonville, Indianapolis, Houston.
Tennessee.
What's the other one?
Tennessee.
Yeah. Yeah. Who cares? I mean, it'll be fun to watch Cam Ward. I hope he does well. But the AFC South is far more boring than the NFC South, in my opinion.
Yeah, I gotta tell you, you're running down the list. Like, I'm thinking, okay, if I'm sitting here on Sunday and wanting to, will I watch Cleveland, Indianapolis? Oof.
No. No. I think the NFC North is going to be an interesting division to watch. The NFC East, just because, well, but then, like, the Giants are so bad. I mean, Washington's fun to watch, but the Giants, and then I mean Philadelphia, yeah,
Dallas.
Super Bowl champs, blah blah.
As long as you've got Jerry in your division, your division is always going to be interesting.
Yes. And then, yeah, I mean the AFC West,
It's good.
you know, Kansas City. Who's
Chargers.
gonna? I mean, maybe Denver will give them a run. I am hoping the Raiders will look better. I feel like they should. And the Chargers. I mean, that could be an interesting division. That could be.
I think it will be. I think it will be.
Yeah. I forget about the Chargers sometimes. No offense, but it's because they're in LA, and I can't. Like, that just still doesn't work for me. Like, oh yeah, the Chargers, the LA Chargers. What the heck? Yeah. Oh my. Well, I did a little judging for the Tampa Bay Fashion Experience last week for their model encore face-off, and Jamal Dean was there, fresh off of his walking in Miami swim week.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so that was funny. And then the after party was at Will Golston, I guess has a new cigar bar, but I didn't go because I don't really want to be in a cigar bar. But Will Golston also walked in Miami swim week.
Okay.
So that was pretty cool. But I think one of my favorite things, so Tampa Bay Fashion Experience, where fashion meets philanthropy, is their tag. And it's Tanika Bowles, Todd's wife, her organization. And they've started something that I'm just so excited about, because it's something that I've wanted to do, so I can do it like with them, and it's great. They're doing a thing called Hot Lunch and a Book. So they're going into a community and they're providing a hot lunch every Wednesday, all of June and July. And then every Wednesday, the kids each get to take home a book and start building their in-home library. So,
okay.
Yeah, so I was there on Wednesday and it was great. It's just so hot. And we're sitting outside and I'm like, oh my God. But I love it. I love that they're doing it. And I think they're really making a nice impact within the community, that little Tampa Bay Fashion Experience. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah, it sounds like fun.
Yeah.
And, I'm sure the kids respond really well to it as well.
Well, I read with so many of them, and I mean, I love reading to and with kids, but you definitely can see that these kids are not reading at level. And yeah, I think so many, I mean, and it's not unique to this community, people just aren't reading. And I'm such a reader, so it kind of makes me sad.
See, but I always just thought the medium has changed. It's not that people aren't reading necessarily. Now, I mean, I know there's a difference between reading a magazine and reading a book, but at the same time, a lot of people have just migrated to, whether it's a Kindle or an Apple book app or whatever.
Maybe. I mean, I'm happy to say that Elizabeth reads, and I mean, my family, we're all readers. I hate when I don't have a book going. I'm like, I need to have a book going at all times. But
Maddie was such a huge reader as a kid and even into her teens, but we just had this conversation maybe 6 weeks ago, and she was just like, maybe she brought it up in terms of like how she didn't enjoy necessarily reading books per se, right? But it's like, really, I was like, that's so odd, because you were I can remember she would like, you'd stop and be like, okay, time for bed, like we've read so many books, and she'd just try to strong arm you, like, no, read more, right? And so it's just weird that her tastes have kind of changed.
That is strange. I keep track of every book I've read since I started doing that during COVID. So I can go back to 2020 and tell you every single book I've read.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, kind of
Holy
fun.
cow.
I like to look through that. But I guess we have moved off topic. So unless you have anything else, we will wrap it up for this week, and we'll just start watching for the trades that are likely to happen and some other stuff that's going to happen before training camp officially gets underway in July, right?
So we're in June now, so we have that second round of cuts, and there will be some notable names in
Yeah.
that. And now that we're in June, so
Yeah. It's always,
there'll be some more stuff to talk about.
always some surprises for sure.
Yes, absolutely.
All right. Well, it was good to chat with you. Hopefully next week I will not bite the inside of my mouth, so I won't be like talking all weird.
Well, I couldn't tell, so that's good news.
All right. Well, everybody, thank you for listening to But First Football, and we will be back again next week with more football conversation. Thanks,
Awesome.
Vaughn.
Okay, see you, Ken. Bye.
Bye.